The first time I noticed something was wrong with my electricity bill, I thought it was a mistake. $347 for a month when I'd barely been home due to a work conference in Chicago. I lived alone in my modest two-bedroom, craftsman house on Maple Street, and my highest bill had never exceeded $120, even during the brutal Arizona summers when my ancient AC unit worked overtime. I called the utility company, spent 45 minutes on hold listening to that infuriating classical music loop, only to be told by a disinterested customer service representative named Brad that the meter readings were accurate. Sometimes, these old houses have electrical issues, he said with the enthusiasm of someone reading from a script. You might want to call an electrician. That's when I noticed her. Brittany Chen Martinez, or as I'd come to know her, the spawn of Karen. Martinez, who lived in the McMansion next door, 23 years old, fresh out of college with a degree in something useless like communications or art history, driving a brand new Tesla Model Y that cost more than I made in a year. The car was pristine white, always gleaming, and she'd positioned it in her driveway like it was a museum piece. But it wasn't the car that caught my attention initially. It was the extension cord. I was coming home from my job at the electronics repair shop when I spotted it. A thick, industrial-grade orange extension cord snaking from my outdoor outlet, across the fence, and disappearing into the Martinez property. My blood pressure spiked so fast, I thought I might stroke out right there on my front lawn. The audacity was breathtaking. Not only had someone trespassed onto my property, but they'd been stealing my electricity for God knows how long. I followed the cord with my eyes, watching it disappear behind their perfectly manicured hedgerow. The same hedgerow that Karen had insisted I trim because it was affecting her property values. I marched over to the Martinez house, my work boots crunching on their pristine concrete driveway. The house was a monument to suburban excess, 3 stories, 6 bedrooms, and enough square footage to house a small village. Everything was beige and cream and boring, like someone had drained all the personality from a paint palette. Karen answered the door in her typical uniform, yoga pants that had never seen a gym, a wine-stained Live, Laugh, Love t-shirt, and that particular expression of barely contained irritation that seemed to be her default setting. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy bun that probably took 30 minutes to achieve the perfect, I'm too busy being fabulous look. What do you want, Marcus? She asked, not even bothering with pleasantries. We'd been neighbors for 3 years, and our relationship had never progressed beyond nodding acknowledgments and passive-aggressive disputes about fence lines. Someone's been stealing my electricity, I said, cutting straight to the point. There's an extension cord running from my outlet to your property. Karen's face went through a fascinating series of expressions, surprise, irritation, then that particular brand of defensive anger that entitled people deploy when caught red-handed. I don't know what you're talking about. It's literally right there, I pointed to where the cord disappeared behind her hedge. Orange extension cord looks like it could power a small aircraft. Oh, that. She waved her hand dismissively. Brittany needed to charge her car. Our garage outlet wasn't working properly. The casual admission hit me like a physical blow. No apology, no embarrassment, just a shrug and an explanation delivered like she was discussing the weather. You can't just steal electricity, I said, trying to keep my voice level. That's theft. You've been stealing from me for months. Stealing is such an ugly word, Karen replied, crossing her arms. We're neighbors. Neighbors help each other out. Help each other out? I felt my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. You didn't ask, you just took. Do you have any idea how much my electricity bill has gone up? It's just a car, Marcus. How much could it possibly cost? That's when I realized I was dealing with someone who had never worried about money in her entire life. Someone who'd never had to choose between paying the electric bill and buying groceries. Someone who thought everyone else existed to make her life more convenient. A Tesla Model Y uses about 28 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. I explained, drawing on my technical knowledge. If your daughter drives even 50 miles a day, that's 14 kilowatt hours daily. At Arizona's rates, that's about $4 per day. Over a month, that's $120. But if she's charging from empty to full, which Takes about 75 kilowatt hours and doing it every few days? Karen's eyes glazed over. Math was clearly not her strong suit. The point is, I continued, you've been stealing hundreds of dollars worth of electricity from me, and I want it to stop. Now. Or what? Karen's voice took on that particular tone that middle-aged white women use when they're about to ask for a manager. You'll call the police over a little electricity? If I have to. She laughed, actually laughed. Good luck with that, Marcus. Brittany's father is a lawyer, a very good lawyer. I'm sure we can work something out that doesn't involve unpleasantness. The threat was clear. David Martinez, Karen's husband, was indeed a lawyer, a corporate attorney who specialized in making problems disappear for wealthy clients. He'd made it clear on multiple occasions that he considered me a nuisance, a blue-collar neighbor who lowered the tone of their exclusive neighborhood. But Karen had made a critical error. She'd assumed I was just another pushover who would cave to intimidation. I'd grown up in foster care, bounced between homes until I aged out of the system at 18. I'd worked my way through community college while living in a studio apartment that barely qualified as habitable. I'd built my life from nothing, learned to fix everything myself because I couldn't afford to pay someone else to do it. And somewhere along the way, I'd learned that the only way to deal with bullies was to hit back harder than they hit you. Disconnect the cord, I said quietly. Today. And if we don't? I smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. Then I'll disconnect it myself, and I guarantee you won't like how I do it. I walked away before she could respond, my mind already working through the problem. This wasn't just about the electricity anymore. This was about respect, about boundaries, about teaching someone that actions have consequences. Back in my garage, I pulled out my toolbox and started planning. 30 years of fixing electronics had taught me that every system has a weakness, every circuit has a breaking point, and Karen's daughter was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The extension cord was still there the next morning, still snaking across my property like an orange parasite. Brittany's Tesla sat in the driveway, plugged in and charging, while my neighbor's daughter nowhere to be seen. Probably still in bed, I figured, living off her parents' money and never having worked a real day in her life. I checked my mailbox and found my latest electricity bill, $436. That's when I decided Karen and her daughter needed to learn about consequences. I spent the next 2 days researching and planning. Tesla's charging system was sophisticated, but it wasn't bulletproof. The Model Y charged at 48 amps on a 240-volt circuit, which meant it drew serious power. But more importantly, it had sensitive electronics that managed that power flow, electronics that could be disrupted. On Friday evening, I watched from my kitchen window as Brittany came home from whatever entitled 20-somethings do all day. She parked her Tesla with the same precision she always used, then plugged it into my stolen electricity without a second thought. The arrogance was breathtaking. Even after her mother's conversation with me, even knowing I was aware of the theft, she continued like nothing had happened. That night, I put my plan into action. The beauty of my solution was its simplicity. I didn't need to damage anything, permanently, or do anything obviously illegal. I just needed to introduce a little chaos into their perfectly ordered world. Working by flashlight, I carefully modified the connection where their extension cord met my outlet. Nothing dangerous, nothing that would hurt anyone. Just a small device that would create a very specific type of electrical interference. The kind of interference that would make their Tesla's charging system think it was under attack. Saturday morning, I was drinking coffee and watching the sunrise when I heard the first scream. Brittany stood in her driveway, staring at her Tesla with an expression of pure horror. The car's charging port was smoking, and the dashboard was lit up like a Christmas tree with error messages. But the best part was the smell. That distinctive odor of fried electronics that meant something expensive had just died. "Mom!" Brittany's voice carried across the neighborhood. "Something's wrong with my car!" Karen emerged from the house in her bathrobe, took one look at the smoking Tesla, and immediately turned to glare at my house. She knew. She knew exactly what had happened and who was responsible. But here's the thing about being smart and being right. Sometimes they're the same thing. I raised my coffee cup in a mock toast, visible through my kitchen window. Karen's face turned an interesting shade of purple. 20 minutes later, the tow truck arrived. Brittany was crying. Actual tears over her precious car. Karen was on the phone, probably with David, her voice carrying across the yard in angry, clipped adieu. 3 weeks passed in blissful silence. My electricity bill returned to normal, the extension cord remained buried somewhere in Karen's garage, and Brittany's Tesla sat in the shop getting what I assumed was a very expensive repair job. I'd started to think the whole ordeal was behind me when everything changed on a rainy Tuesday evening. I was in my garage rebuilding the transmission on my 1987 Ford pickup, a therapeutic ritual I performed whenever life got too complicated, when I heard a soft knock on my side door. Not the aggressive pounding I'd come to associate with Karen's visits, but a hesitant, almost apologetic sound. When I opened the door, I found Brittany standing in the drizzle, looking nothing like the entitled princess I'd grown accustomed to seeing. Her usually perfect hair was damp and disheveled, her designer clothes replaced with worn jeans and a faded university sweatshirt. But it was her eyes that caught me off guard, red-rimmed and exhausted, like she'd been crying for days. "Can I talk to you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Every instinct told me to slam the door. This was clearly some kind of setup, probably orchestrated by Karen and her lawyer husband. But something in Brittany's expression, a vulnerability I'd never seen before, made me hesitate. About what? About my car. About the electricity. About... She took a shaky breath. About my mother. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and led her into my garage. She looked around with genuine curiosity, taking in my workbench, my tools, the half-assembled transmission scattered across a blue tarp. "You really know how to fix things," she said, and there was something almost wistful in her voice. "It's what I do for a living." "I know. I looked you up." She turned to face me, and I saw something unexpected in her expression. Respect. Marcus Chen, graduated summa cum laude from Phoenix Technical Institute, certified in advanced electronics. Repair, owns Chen Electronics on 5th Street. Your Yelp reviews are incredible. People say you can fix anything. The research surprised me. Most people like Brittany wouldn't bother learning about their blue-collar neighbors. "What do you want, Brittany?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "I want to apologize. For the electricity, for my mother, for everything." I'd been prepared for threats, for demands, for more entitled behavior. An apology was the last thing I'd expected. "Your mother know you're here?" Brittany laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "My mother doesn't know a lot of things about me. Like the fact that I didn't know about the extension cord until after you confronted her, or that I've been trying to pay you back for months, but she keeps intercepting my attempts." "What do you mean?" "I tried to slip cash in your mailbox. She found it and took it back. I tried to leave a check under your door. She tore it up. I even tried to pay your electricity bill directly, but she called the utility company and convinced them I was some kind of scammer." The picture she was painting didn't match the spoiled princess narrative I'd constructed in my head, but I wasn't ready to let my guard down completely. "So why didn't you just unplug the extension cord yourself?" "Because I'm weak," she said, and the self-loathing in her voice was painful to hear. "Because I've never stood up to her, never fought back, never done anything but take the path of least resistance my entire life." She moved to my workbench and picked up a circuit board I'd been repairing. A complex piece of equipment from a medical device that required microscopic precision to fix. "This is beautiful," she said, examining the intricate pathways. "How do you know which connections to make?" "Experience, practice, understanding how electricity flows and where it wants to go." "I wish I understood electricity half as well as you do." She set the board down carefully. "Maybe then I wouldn't have been so stupid about the Tesla." "What do you mean?" Brittany's laugh was hollow. "The Tesla wasn't mine. It was never mine. It's a lease in my mother's name, paid for with my father's money, and I wasn't even supposed to be driving it that much." but Mom insisted I use it to maintain our image in the neighborhood. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. You're telling me you were stealing electricity to charge a car that wasn't even yours? Worse than that. She turned to face me, and I saw tears starting to form in her eyes. The reason Mom had me use your electricity instead of fixing our garage outlet. She was planning to blame the high electric bills on me. She was going to tell my father I was being reckless and irresponsible, that I needed to be reined in financially. That's psychotic? Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Do you know what she said when the Tesla got fried? She said it was my fault for not being careful enough. She's making me pay for the repairs out of my own money I earned working at a coffee shop because she won't let me get a real job that might embarrass the family. I stared at her, trying to reconcile this broken young woman with the entitled princess I'd imagined. How much are the repairs? $14,000. The charging system, the battery management computer, half the electrical components, in the car. Apparently, whatever you did created a feedback loop that cascaded through the entire system. I felt a flicker of guilt, but pushed it down. I never meant for it to be that expensive. I know. And honestly, I'm glad you did it. It was the first time in my life that someone held me accountable for my actions, even if I didn't know I was doing anything wrong at the time. She moved closer, and I could see the determination building in her expression. I want to learn, she said. I want to understand how you did it. Not so I can get revenge or anything like that, but because I want to understand how things work, how electricity works, how circuits work, how to fix things instead of just throwing money at problems. Why? Because I'm tired of being helpless. I'm tired of being dependent on people who use that dependence to control me. I'm tired of being the kind of person who doesn't even know when she's doing something wrong. There was something in her voice, a steel I'd never heard before, that made me believe her. And I want to help you, she continued. My mother isn't done with you. She's planning something involving my father and his legal connections. But she doesn't know that I know, and she definitely doesn't know that I'm not on her side anymore. What kind of something? She's trying to build a case that you damaged our property maliciously. She's been taking pictures of your house, your car, your routine. She's convinced Dad that you're some kind of dangerous criminal who needs to be dealt with before you hurt someone. The news sent a chill down my spine. David Martinez had connections throughout the legal system, and if he decided I was a threat to his family, he could make my life very difficult. She's also been talking to other neighbors, Brittany continued, spreading stories about you, trying to turn the whole street against you. She's telling people you're unstable, that you've been making threats, that you're the kind of person who might snap and hurt someone. That's slander. That's my mother. She destroys people who cross her, and she's very good at it. But here's the thing, she's not as smart as she thinks she is, and she's not as careful as she should be. Brittany pulled out her phone and showed me a series of text messages. They were between Karen and someone named DM, presumably David Martinez, and the content made my blood run cold. We need to neutralize the threat before he escalates, one message read. I've got enough evidence to get a restraining order, maybe even criminal charges. Those are fabricated, I said, reading through the messages. I know, but they're also evidence of conspiracy to file false police reports, which is a felony, and I've got more where that came from. She swiped to another conversation, this one between Karen and someone listed as HOA president. The Martinez family is concerned about property values, the exchange began.